And we are back, people. What is up? Dolphins first practice with the versus Falcons today. First joint practice. Obviously, the preseason game is this weekend on Friday. Thank God. Definitely need some live action. Going over the training camp practice is fun, but you take a lot of that stuff with a grain of salt. You still take the preseason with a grain of salt too, but it's nice to see the action in like real live. You can get a lot of more answers out of that, and I feel like it's where you get to really see who's going to fight for some of these last roster spots, which is exciting. So definitely excited to go over some of today. There's a lot of updates to look at. Looks like the Dolphins had a pretty good day. They definitely started strong. We're winning a lot of the early stuff, and then towards the end of the drills, it seemed like it was being a little more even. The Falcons were fighting back for sure, and had a different, pretty fun battle. Also, Dolphins released like an unofficial depth chart. That's another thing that I would take with a grain of salt. The unofficial depth chart, like where players are ranked and stuff, like the rookies are all on the backside of the list. That's just how things usually worked out. I don't put too much stock into that type of thing either. But it is interesting to kind of look at those things. And also cap space wise, with the Tyreek Hill new deal, the new restructure, the Dolphins are at $36 million in cap space right now, which I do think they'll carry most of that over for next season because they do need cap space for next season. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone came available and they tried to, go after that person if that's what they felt like was, the final missing piece. What's up, Terry? How you doing? It goes pretty good, pretty nice to see the Dolphins go against someone different, and they had a pretty decent day. Starting with the one-on-one. Also, so Duke Riley had the orange jersey today, and then Cam Smith returned. But it looks like he was moving around. He's back to being healthy, which is big because he needs to compete in preseason to have a chance to see some playing time. And starting with the one-on-one period, going over, Wingfield has on here on Twitter, competitive one-on-one period. Patrick Paul pitched a shutout on the 3 reps. Looks like Patrick Paul has been playing above, like a decent amount above expectations, like especially early, because I do think he was more of a project and obviously needs some work. So I'm excited to see him in the preseason game. Definitely one of the guys that I'm like, let's see how much his technique has changed since college with new coaching. Same with Rob Jones. He had a strong one-on-one period. Jason Maitre had 2 PBUs. That's been a theme for him. Like, that guy, as a UDFA, has been making a name for himself in recent weeks, which has been like one of the more surprising players because he joined off like the rookie camps. Like, they signed him to a contract after that. He was like one of the tryout players, and usually you don't see those guys really get a chance, but we'll see. Definitely one of the UDFAs now to watch out for in the preseason. There's like a handful of names. I think he belongs on that list now. 2 had a beautiful over-the-shoulder bucket drop to Malik for a touchdown. I think I have that video, so I'll show that later when I get to that portion. Cater was making plays still. Nobody was guarding Tyreek. I think during the one-on-one, it looked like the Falcons DBs actually did a good job because Waddle wasn't practicing today. Odell's obviously still not practicing. It looks like a lot of the other receivers were kind of struggling in one-on-ones, or at least, going back and forth, being even, but Tyreek was like the one that was consistently winning. But yeah. What's up with Waddle? I think it's just like a rest day for him. Like, he was there. He was at the practice. He was just chilling. I think they're kind of doing that with play. If it starts to stack up and it becomes multiple days in a row, then I would be worried. But for one practice, I'm not worried for sort of the players on our teams that have guaranteed roster spots. Usually for training camps, honestly, I don't mind if players like, take a practice break, or, the players that are like guaranteed on the roster, or if they're like kind of have a struggle day too, because it's fine to struggle at these practices. It's like say your quarterback's throwing interceptions. I'm totally okay with that. Like, be aggressive, make those plays, especially if you're one of those guys that's not like fighting for a roster spot. Then you want to be a lot more consistent to prove yourself. But first 2 plays of the team for O. River Craycraft gets free on a little turkey hole window. Tua shoots it in for about 20. Always nice to see. It seems like River's been one of the more consistent receivers at these practices, and during team has had a lot of success. Clearly, this offense takes a lot of consistency. So, Raheem presses play side behind blocks of Julian Hill and Austin Jackson, cuts it up for a good game. Give him 5 or 6. Any info on Storm Duck? Yeah, I think he made some plays today, so we'll talk about that when I get there. When I'm scrolling up to it. David Onyemata beat the blocks of Rob Jones for a tackle for loss on Achane. I think apparently the Dolphins O-line struggled today a bit, specifically the left side with Rob Jones and Kendall Lamb. That's something that I heard from a few different sources. So that, don't want to see that continue versus the new team. People will have off days, but hopefully they can keep that up with some consistency. Definitely the O-line is one of the bigger question marks going into the season. Kendall Fuller draws Kyle Pitts one-on-one for deep ball, pinned with the sideline, stayed on top, and pass never had a chance. Love me some Kendall Fuller. Ramsey had a PBU, obviously. Not worried about those veterans at all. Not too much to say when it comes to them. Tua had back-to-back completions to Julian Hill to move the chains. Julian Hill's, I feel like a lock, personally. I feel very strongly about Julian Hill. He's the best blocking tight end on the roster, and it feels like he's being more involved in the receiving game than ever. Inline guy, does stuff that some of the other tight ends just can't do. And I think if his receiving game develops, which if you go back and watch his college film, his college film was a lot more of him lining up in the slot, being a receiver down the seam, those types of things. So we'll see if he can develop, because sometimes that's one of the things that tight ends usually take a while to develop in. Ramsey also made some plays down near the line of scrimmage, swatting balls. Love hearing just Ramsey being used in multiple different ways. That's where he needs to be. And then this, Chop Robinson lines up the inside, beats the center, meets the Atlanta running back for a big loss. So this was him lining up on the inside versus the run. We've talked about Chop lining up on the inside and, making an impact as a pass rusher. But if he's lines up on the inside versus running plays, he's still so quick that he can still make plays in those situations. Sometimes if he does get if the O-line are able to get hands on him, he'll probably lose that rep, but he's just so explosive, quick to win. That, to me, that's where he's going to make his impact early. We've talked about it so many times. Whether it's pass rushing in multiple different ways too, just him beating the guy straight up one-on-one that he gets, whether it's a guard or center, or just him on stunt work. He's so explosive with his first step. He can be your crash guy, create commotion, allow your looper to get around. He can be your looper with all that speed. Bend that he plays with, so that's pretty nice. Yeah. Julian seemed lost last season when Tua targeted him, especially early. I know his first few targets, he definitely seemed lost, but his last few targets towards the end of the season, he definitely seemed much more comfortable, but we need to see that developed for sure. So it was a nice sign of progression, because I think one of the first targets he ended up had, he even fumbled, or it might have been his second target. But he looked a little uncomfortable, which it makes sense in this offense. You have to be in the exact right spot. But then he made some plays against Washington, which happened later in that than the Raiders game where I think he fumbled. He looked a little more comfortable, even breaking some tackles, because he's a tough son of a bitch. That guy, he's one guy that can run you over too. He's very physical. You really get to see it obviously when he's run blocking, but I'm kind of trying to see if he can develop the yak side of his game too. But we already know we have those guys that can do that stuff. And Jonnu Smith, if Fortson makes the roster, he can do those things. Even Tanner Connor, who might be who's having a good camp. Hearing how well our defense performed is so encouraging. Yeah, the defense had a good day. Seemed like the Falcons offense definitely started fighting back towards the end and making it a competition. But I even think Campbell said, Calais Campbell was even the stuff the positive plays the Falcons had, they still made them fight for it. And obviously the other teams are going to still have positive plays, but it seemed like they were getting after it, confusing things. And yeah, that's definitely an encouraging sign. We'll see. I want to see it in live action though. I want to see the new scheme and how everyone fits into it. Chop should cause some false starts. Yeah, that's definitely possible with his explosiveness. Dolphins have a lot of those guys up front now too. Is the running game at least showing up? From what I heard, I heard the pass blocking was very suspect today, but the run blocking was better. Which I do think, out of their O-linemen can run block. It's not a big concern I have. If the O-line is healthy, I'm not very concerned with the running game at all. The pass game, I would be concerned with one injury. I would be starting to get. I think that would affect our passing offense. I think we'd have to change how McDaniel schemes things up. It happened last year. Craycraft finds the turkey hole again, this time with Mike White drilling it for about 20. Craycraft is just so great at finding those soft spots, whether it's, outside, in those hole shots, like the turkey hole he's talking about, or just middle of the field. Craycraft, super just reliable player, strong hands, great blocker. not going to be like a dominant guy that just wins his one-on-one matchups versus man-to-man. We already have those guys on the roster that can do that. So, but he's just like a really nice wide receiver, like 4 or 5 to have, Tier Tart had another good day. It feels like Tart's getting more and more mentioned. In that unofficial depth chart I talked about earlier, Tart is listed as a second-team guy behind Benito Jones. So he's got to kind of, work his way up because he's fighting Jones for that nose spot, But Tart definitely has much higher upside than him. He's so explosive for a guy of his size. But yeah, got in the backfield again. Definitely one player that I will be keeping an eye on when the preseason game happens. In that first period of team, it looked like the Dolphins kind of dominated both sides, definitely. The first period, and then the second time, it looked like the Dolphins' offense started struggling a bit, which, it makes sense that these camps that teams adjust. I'm not super worried about the offense. And it seems like there were some different motions being tried around that I'll talk about. Here's another note. Malik hits a crackback, seals the edge on Falcons' edge to give Achane some room outside. Love to see that. Blocking an edge from rookie receiver, that's how you get, that's how you get your work and, no block, no rock. Cousins had 2 checkdowns under duress. Seems like that was a big thing for the Dolphins. They kind of forced a lot of checkdowns. Either got quick penetration or had some good coverage on the back end. Falcons defense started showing up, held some plays to short runs. Jeff Wilson had a 5 to 6 yard run before first contact, running off the surge of Paul and Keon Smith, dropping the shoulder, probably got in there for another mention of Paul, obviously. So Paul, very successful. We'll talk about him more later, but I want to talk about the Keon Smith thing because what that tells me is Keon Smith, one, listed on the depth chart as a guard, like as the second left guard, right? And then also right here, he's working next to Paul, so he's playing guard, left guard. And that's kind of like a big thing. If Keon Smith can improve at guard, because we already know what we can get out of him at tackle. We saw it last season. I think he can be a solid enough swing tackle, could play if needed at either tackle spot, really. And then guard. If he can develop as a guard, that would be huge for them. He struggled at guard in last preseason. It seems like they're trying to get him more and more work at guard. I don't know if that will end up working out for them because I do think he is kind of a molded to play tackle. But if he can give you some guard depth, I think that would give him a much better shot of sticking around too. McDaniel running scheme opens up the passing game seamlessly. If you ask me, yeah, definitely plays a part. Questenberg came in for a visit. Would he fit as a backup? I would need to watch him. I haven't watched Questenberg in a while. I'm pretty sure he would be a decent scheme fit from what I remember. But I don't think he was the best player. So if they sign him, I'll watch film. But I don't really want to watch bad offensive line play if I don't have to. Patrick Paul was best alignment today. Yeah, that's what it seemed like. It seemed like Paul has been pretty dominant. At least that's what everyone, I think one beat reporter was saying Paul was struggling, but all the rest of them were all saying very positive things. So I'm excited to see Paul. If he's already developing this fast, if his technique looks way different, that's going to be great. I think if we see him in live action, he could see some struggles, but he's clearly got the physical presence that you want. Craig Kraft is very crafty, finds a soft spot. Yeah, the O-line definitely had their troubles from everything that I saw and everything that I've heard. Definitely, I think it's kind of expected, especially in these practice periods. Because one, I think defense is usually especially the defensive line, usually have the advantage versus O-line in a lot of those drills. And then when it comes to team, I feel like defenses usually also have an advantage at practice too. So it makes sense. We've seen it in the past. When it comes to game time, I do think McDaniel will obviously do his best to help out the offensive schematically, especially the O-line. He's going to do his best to make things easier for them. But I think in practice, he's clearly trying to, give them reps where they can improve themselves. So it makes sense that they're struggling to me, honestly. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they look completely different in the game. Not even because they're just playing better, but because McDaniel is scheming things to make things easier. I think Paul starts at left tackle against Falcons? Probably. Because Armstead's not going to play. They're not going to play Lamb. And then looks like Keon Smith they're probably going to use Keon Smith at tackle and guard, I guess. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Paul starts and sees significant snaps in the first preseason game. Definitely one to watch. Why has Cam Smith been so quiet? Cam Smith just returned from injury. I think literally yesterday he did some drills. He didn't play 11-on-11, but I think he literally just started practicing again, so that's why it's been quiet. But yeah, this is big. He needs to come back and make some plays after being injured. So, do you think we need to trade for a guard? I'm not against trading for a guard if the right deal comes out. I'm not sure who would be available because it always takes, with the trades, it always takes two to tango, you know? So we need to see if other teams are willing to trade a guy that's actually a good scheme fit, one, and actually a good enough player, and then what would the cost be? I'm definitely not against it, but I just don't think it's a super easy thing to find. Yeah. And when it comes to training camp, I wouldn't put too much stock in a lot of things, you know, because things can change vastly when it comes to game time. And this is where you work out the kinks. So like the negative stuff happening, this is where you want it to happen. If it's going to happen, this is where you want it to happen so they can improve upon it too. Yeah, Cam just missed playing time, and I think he literally practiced today for like really the first time in a while. So hopefully he plays in preseason. That's a good point, Scotty. I've been thinking about it. I'm like, I kind of think I just want the Niners to keep Ayuk at this point because I really don't want any of those teams, though, to get Ayuk in the AFC, you know? Because it would just make the Browns and Steelers better. And then if he went to the Patriots, it's like, the Patriots would still be bad, but I don't want the Patriots to get better either. Duke Riley and Jalen Ramsey make back-to-back plays. Looks like Paul, Falcons edge, didn't see the number, tried to cross face on Patrick Paul, and Paul just took him straight to the ground, punishing blocks, sprung a big run. That play, there's literally a play, I'm literally picturing this one in my head, there's a play, like, I think one of Paul's best plays in college is very similar to this, where he, like, torques a guy to the ground that really tried to cross his face. Versus the running game, definitely. Yep, I'm very excited to see Malik Washington as well, because it seems like he's getting more and more mentions in these, you know, training camp practices. Super Bowl. Let me move this. What does Skylar Thompson to Craig Kraft for 20 or so. Craig Kraft had multiple big teams and, you know, multiple big plays in teamwork today, which Craig Kraft just gets it done, man. That's like, I don't know how he does it, but he just continuously is in the right spot. Just such a smart player. Really the stereotypical white receiver, man. Willie Snead is all alone about 25 yards downfield, but Thompson throws, misses the mark. You know, Skylar Thompson versus Mike White, still an interesting battle. Phoenix has some hit short, but is a little bit overshot. Don't care. Oh, yeah. This is from Wingfield. Tua, an absolute fucking dime to Tyreek for the 50-yard touchdown. Ryan Stride beat Mike Hughes. That video, I think I liked it somewhere. I'll find that later, but after we go through some of these notes. But I wonder if the Dolphins Twitter will post that one. Another dime to Tyreek. And we'll see people somehow try to point out that it wasn't a good throw or something. Which unit is just showing up every day? It seems, I would say the edge group. It seems like the edge group has been very disruptive every single day. And the other linebacker group too. The off-ball linebackers, like, well, Brooks and Walker, I believe, are injured right now, so they haven't been practicing the last couple of days. But before that, they were getting a ton of look at. And then also the backups have been showing up. DBs have been solid all around, I'm pretty sure. Wide receivers, not the whole group, but a lot of them obviously do well. It's up on Twitter. I have the video. I have it liked, but I just don't know if did the Dolphins account post it? Steelers didn't ring him midday regarding Brandon Ayuk. Looks like Schefter tweeted about Ayuk and the Steelers 12 minutes ago. I didn't see that one. Yeah. Yeah, I'll find it later. I have it liked somewhere. Yeah, I think the whole the defensive side of the ball has been pretty big. Duke stepped in front of the throw to the hook zone and should have picked it, but couldn't hang on. Duke, obviously, fighting for one of those off-ball linebacker spots. He got the orange jersey. He was making plays today. Obviously gets to be more involved with the injuries to guys like Brooks and Walker. That linebacker room is pretty interesting, too, because I know, like, Ezekiel Vandenberg is kind of a part of that group instead of the edge group now, and he's had a pretty good camp. And even, like, I know Quentin Bell has had some experience there. Achane wins a corner on a toss, not surprising. Achane returning with Barrios out, I prefer Wright. Honestly, I just feel like for kick returns, I'd really like to see Achane. And I'm pretty sure Wright was getting some work today too, wasn't he? I saw like a few different names from, but yeah, I think Achane was like the next guy up. Big fight breaks out. Oh yeah, there was a fight today. I think it started with Ethan Bonner and Drake London, which is pretty funny. And then like Chop was in the middle of it versus the whole lineman. It was like kind of cleared. I don't think I saw a video of it, but I heard it was with Bonner and London, which is tough because I mean, it's funny to see Bonner and then also Drake London. He actually went to he's younger than me, but he went to the same high school that I went to actually. But yeah. Tua rips a deep in cut to Kyrick McGowan for about 20 balls on a rope right between two defenders. Seemed like Tua was ripping it up, especially early. I think he had some, picks late, which I don't mind. I think people overreact to interceptions in training camp because that's where you want to throw them. That's where you want to see what you can get away with and what kind of plays you can make in those things. Heard good things about Bonner. Will he make the 53-man squad? As of right now, I would say yes. Can you imagine if Wright goes off? With Brown being listed as outside linebacker, Riley and Tyndall. Well, yeah, the thing with Brown is he's not a true edge, and he's more of like a Sam type, like not really like your typical pass rushing guy, but he's super long, can set the edge and give you like those in between, type reps as a strong side linebacker. But yeah, Riley and Tyndall definitely have a decent shot. I think Wright will have a good year, better than people think. Let's see. What else? Patrick Paul gets hit with a holding call and a right run coming his way. Interesting. He had to have something negative, after having pretty much only positive for a while. So Falcons started bringing blitzes in this next team period. It seemed like the first team period, Dolphins offense did really well. In the second team period, they started bringing a lot of blitzes in. The Dolphins kind of struggled to pick those things up. But yeah. Chop, force in on another play, forced an incompletion by getting around the edge with speed. So winning in the interior, beating guards, centers with the quickness, also can still win around the edge. Great bend. Excited to see him in action. I still think he has skills to his game that really do translate right away, and he can make an impact right away. But there's still things about his game that he can evolve a lot, and that's where he can truly become like special. Like I think he'll be impactful instantly with that first step. With how explosive he is, just overall, the bend. He plays with good like leverage, low center of gravity, has some pop to his game too when he really picks up that momentum. That stuff's going to instantly translate whether he's getting sacks or not. He's going to create pressures and it makes it easier on his teammates on like stunts and stuff. But yeah. Avery Williams tries to turn the corner on outside run, but Storm Duck comes from depth and puts a stick on him for a very short game. Duck's shown his coverage skills and physicality this camp. I think Duck is a pretty like prime practice squad candidate in my opinion. That's kind of where I'm thinking with Duck. Like out of the DB room, you got to think like out of your guys that make it. I feel like Duck and like Jason Maitre, Patrick McMorris, the guy you drafted, you're probably looking at those guys to potentially be practice squad players for you because really, most of the DB spots are pretty locked in stone right now. It's not like they have to over jump someone that you might not think. I think like Needham could be cut too. We'll see if that happens or not. But I would like to see some of those younger UDFAs or stick around on the practice squad. Deshaun Hannon and Jonathan Harris deconstruct blocks for quick pressure on Penix. Hearing their names. And let's look like at I know the depth chart, the unofficial depth chart really doesn't mean that much, but for D tackles, they have Sealer, Benito Jones, and Campbell listed as starters. And on the second group, they have Jonathan Harris, Tier Tart, and Deshaun Hand. So they have those three over like Neville Gallimore, which is interesting. So, because usually with depth charts, it's like, well, they're putting all the rookies at the end. But when it comes to like vets that are like pretty even, when it comes like a Harris and a Gallimore, it is, I think, something to take notice of that they put like Harris and Hand above Gallimore. That is interesting. But it could be a misdirect. Sometimes they do that. Do you agree with Tyreek getting #1 NFL player? I mean, I don't know. When it comes to like those rankings, I just don't really care. Like, to be honest, I think people like overreact to them. Like, people are overreacting like crazy. But like, if you look at last year, was Tyreek the best player in the NFL? I think it can be argued. I think there's an argument for a few different players. Because like, if I had to say who's the best player in the NFL, I would say Patrick Mahomes. But would I say he was the best player in the NFL from start to finish last year? Probably not. Like, if I'm building a franchise, I'm taking Mahomes. But I would probably go towards like the Tyreeks, the McCaffreys, like on a play-to-play basis. I mean, probably McCaffrey was probably the most consistent player in the league last year on a play-to-play basis, and then some like linemen as well. But yeah, I think Tyreek's up there for sure, definitely in like the top 5. So putting him at 1 to me is not like some egregious thing that people were getting mad about. Team period, firing it up again. First play, a Dolphins sack Sealer and Kendall Fuller on the scene as Cousin eats up the ball. I feel like the DBs have been getting mentioned a lot on these like sacks or run stops in the backfield. That just tells me like he is using DBs, or Weaver's using DBs in a variety of different ways, using their versatility, especially because like Fuller can play the slot. People like, he's been a very good outside corner for the past few years, but when Fuller first came into the league, he was one of the best nickel corners for years, and then like strictly has played outside the past few years. But Fuller, Ramsey can both play nickel if needed. Kohu is a good nickel. Nick Needham has plenty of experience in the nickel. Like, they have a lot of guys that can really play that spot. It's probably one of our deepest spots when you think of how many guys on this team that can play the nickel corner. Tua's first rep results in a scramble, but a flag is called, I think, on Smythe. Cousins' biggest play of the day at the time, at 18 yards to London on an outbreaker working on Fuller. Seemed like it took the Falcons a while to get like any big plays. They were definitely struggling. Atlanta D stacks up blocks of Liam and Austin to shut Raheem down for no gain, and then a free run from AJ Terrell forces Tua to throw it away. For next draft, what are your early predictions for our first couple picks? Ooh, okay. Well, I gotta think like, okay, I think one position that I'm looking at early, I don't know if the Dolphins will be necessarily, is safety, because Poyer's on a 1-year deal, Marcus May is on a 1-year deal. Javal Holland currently is set to be a free agent next year. I think safety is going to be a big name next year, even if you extend Holland or not. So I think safety is a big one. I think they could potentially look at corner, because Fuller would only have 1 more year. It just depends what they see out of Cam Smith and Ethan Bonner. Linebacker's fine. They're fine at edge, even if they released Bradley Chubb. I would be looking at interior D-line and interior O-line. I just don't think the Dolphins valued as much. I think it proved these past couple of years that they're not going to value it early. I think they could take it in maybe round 3. But I just don't know if in the first 2 picks they'll go there. I think they're going to still look at premium positions. But I think safety and then both trenches is probably where the priority would be. Let's see, what else do we got here? Atlanta D stacks up blocks of Liam and Austin to shut Raheem down for no gain, and then frees up run for Terrell to force Tua to throw it away. Mike Hughes has his revenge, picks off Tua on a throw to the outside where Craycraft broke in. Tua was hot, knew they were bringing more than they had for protection, caught the snap and threw it falling away. So this is another play people mentioned. It was a pick, but it was this is where anticipation can get you into trouble. Sometimes when things are hot, you have to throw the ball early, even earlier than you want. Tua is already a player that throws it very quick, very early before receivers break. And he also, I think, had someone similar where he threw this to Bird, the UDFA. If you and your wide receiver are just a little bit off on the same page, all it takes is that for a miss to happen. So that seems to happen on that pick. But I do not mind throwing interceptions in camp at all. Pretty much for any quarterback. Yeah, it seemed like they struggled in that second series. Damn. Simultaneous action. Eddie Goldman beats Driscoll for a tackle for loss. Ethan Bonner blankets Rondell Moore as the pass fall incomplete. Ethan Bonner propaganda. I love it. I'm excited to see Ethan Bonner in the preseason. Haven't seen him play in a time, and he he had good reps. If you've watched any of my film breakdowns on him, or like when I did just on defense in general, he was a part of some of those. He made some excellent plays for an undrafted rookie. And from the clips I've seen from Bonner, he just looks smoother, better technique, which is big because he has enough size and athleticism and I think instincts to be a player in this league. Thank you for letting me in your space. Hello, Ryder. What's up, Alex? What's up, Zim? How you guys doing? Looks like there was a deep ball completed on Neal to Hodge. This is when I think the Falcons offense started picking it up a bit. Mike White has completions of 10 and 15 to Malik Washington and Jaquan Burton. Good, accurate, strong throws on both. Still, interesting battle. I don't have too much stock in either Mike White or Skylar Thompson, so I don't really care who gets the second QB job. But it is interesting to see who ends up winning it. Are you falling to the Jets side this year? Will they challenge for the AFC East or just fizzle out like usual? Well, I think if they stay healthy, they'll definitely be better than they were last season. But like, I'm not into the hype where like there's some people who legitimately think like the Dolphins are the third team by far. I think the Jets will compete, but I don't think I think they're worse than both the Bills and the Dolphins. Like, I have them third personally. I think they'll be definitely more competitive. Oh my God, what is that noise? Okay. But I'm not buying into like the super hype that some of the people are pushing out there. But I also don't want to be biased and think, just because they're Jets, they're going to suck. I think if they stay healthy, they'll definitely put up more of a fight. Ingold and Julian Hill square up, punishing blocks to spring A-Chan. Ingold and Julian Hill might be some of those punishing blockers on the team, to be honest. Those guys hit with an absolute force. Second play of red zone for the Miami offense is a sack of Tua. He got away from some initial pressure, but the rushers just kept coming, shut the play down. Seemed like it was more the offensive line kind of falling apart in these next team works. Tua works on the right side, coming back to the left side, fires a shot to Craycraft on stride in the end zone for 6. Seems Craycraft continuously making plays, even in the red zone, whether it's 20 yards down the field in the red zone drills. River's a good player. Simultaneous snaps. Finn's touchdown, Dolphins PBU. Tua finds Raheem Mostert, who waves his way in for 6 on the block of Durham Smythe. And Marcus May drives on a goal line out and breaks up Cousins' pass. And then we're into the 2-minute stuff. So the 2-minute stuff was interesting on both sides from what I'd seen. Tua was sacked on the first play of the 2-minute by Lorenzo Carter. I think Lorenzo Carter gave him some trouble. But then after that, he bounced back with 2 completions. 2-minute drill is usually one of my favorite for camps. I feel like you can actually take some stuff from this and actually learn. And it's also nice to see them getting these types of reps going into the game. But then they got back after this instant sack where like he just came in unblocked. They responded, and I think they ended up kicking like a 50-yard field goal. And then the Falcons did the same thing. It was probably their most successful offensive part of the day. They moved down the field fairly quickly and kicked an easy field goal. But yeah, I think that was it for the practice updates from the Wingfield stuff. Thoughts on EE? Well, EE hasn't really been playing. He's injured. That's like the toughest part. I don't know if he will develop because EE has a very specific skill set, and the Dolphins have some of those players on the roster now that can give you that skill set that they want, and especially in like the tight end room that can kind of do some of the things he can. I just don't know if he has put it all together when it comes to like route running, being in the correct spot. Because if he doesn't come back and kind of start to compete, he's either going to go on some injury list or potentially could even be cut. It wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, as I talked about, Dolphins cap space is literally at $36 million, which is pretty good. Like now they're in the negatives next season, so they're going to have to carry over a decent amount of this, in my opinion. But as I was saying, this just gives them flexibility if they do need to use this cap space this year for anyone, whether it's a trade, someone unexpected gets cut, and they want some help, or maybe injuries happen, they need to pick someone up. They now have that flexibility. The unofficial depth chart has dropped. If you guys have any question about the depth chart, I'm not going to go too far into it because it's unofficial and it really is doesn't mean too much. But if you guys have questions, we can go over some of that in a sec. Also, there's some like Falcons reporters I was seeing today. They we're talking, can see some unbiased. It seems like Surian Neal made some plays against Rondell Moore in one-on-one. Oh, here's one of the plays that I found video-wise. This is the one-on-one drill. Seems like Malik Washington now one-on-one has been winning on some of these vertical routes. I like the hand fighting down the field, tracking it, and just a beautiful ball, I believe, from Tua. Hand fighting, create that late separation, track it in. Excited to see Washington action. One of the players I'm most excited to see for preseason. Another thing I saw, Tyler DeSena tweeted this. Jody Fortson got some reps ISO'd up on the boundary side with a group made up of mostly starters from Miami. Interesting that, he's been working with some of those guys. Maybe that means nothing, but maybe it means he's kind of getting some work with more of the guys on the side that are definitely going to make the roster. Fortson is out of the tight end group. Like, that's why the tight end group is really tough to predict right now, because Fortson's really the only one in the tight end group that can give you like reps as an X, isolated, and he's your best red zone threat out of that group. And then everyone kind of has their own specific skill set. That's why it becomes very, very difficult. That's why I think Tanner Connor is kind of the odd one out, but also I think Connor's the one you can get on the practice squad, so you might be able to keep all of them, honestly. Because Connor kind of has a similar skill set to more like a Jonnu, while Hill is just a dominant blocker. Yeah, I saw more Tier Tart Love. Here's another video. Looks like Tua coming off the first read. I believe this one was. Let me watch it. Watching it with you guys. Motion across. Play action. His first read's not there. Then finds someone leaking out there. I can't really tell which number that was. Because they motioned angled across. It looks like it's a tight end right here. Maybe that's... Oh, this is probably Craycraft, right? I think that's 85. Yeah, leaking out late like he was blocking. Yeah, that's probably the whole shot people were talking about earlier. Let's see. Okay, Dolphins are 24-1 to win the Super Bowl. Every Dolphins fan of age should buy Undertaker. I think Chris Brooks can take Jeff Wilson's... From the looks of training camp, he's on the outside right now, not making it. I personally, if it was my decision, I would probably lean Chris Brooks over Jeff Wilson, because I think he offers, even versatility as like a blocker. We've seen him doing stuff as like a fullback, and I think he has more upside, I think, at this point in his career. Plus, I think Wilson lost some weight, and I just don't think Wilson is even that great as a power back. Like, he runs hard, but he's not like super powerful. And he's not super explosive either. He's just a guy who's he's solid. He gets the job done. He understands the offense. I think that's why he's more reliable right now. But I do think the preseason can change that. Like, last year we saw Brooks was lighting it up in the preseason. If he lights it up in the preseason again, they might not want to risk him letting him go, because they probably do think they might be able to get Brooks on the practice squad. And they keep him on the practice squad, that still means they can keep him around to develop, Is it possible to bring in another QB? If so, who's out there? I'm pretty sure the best QB available is Ryan Tannehill, so at least the one they can bring in. But there's not many options now. If you're talking about backups, I think that's what we're talking about, right? Because they're definitely not. Yeah, we ain't finding starters. I think let's see. Yeah, Tua threw the 50-yard touchdown. Even saw some I'm looking at Falcons beat reporters talking about it. People were saying Durham Smythe has been tight end 1 throughout practice, which doesn't surprise me. And he's also listed tight end 1 on the depth chart. That does not surprise me if he's listed as tight end 1 and getting tight end 1 reps. Because him and Jonnu, it doesn't matter who's tight end 1 or tight end 2. They're very different players. Bring very different skill sets. I think Durham will just be the starter where he's on the field, for those reps where you might be run blocking, and then it's obvious passing situations, get Jonnu on the field, and they'll rotate in and out a lot, because they're one's an inline Y player while the other one's an H back F tight end type, who can align in multiple different spots. Yeah, the fight broke out. People talking about Ethan Bonner, Chop Robinson. I think this was another one. Another little clip from practice. Pretty classic, going empty right here. Motion in, I think that's Washington. Look it off and then snap back. Pretty classic to a play where he just looks off to one side, comes back to his receiver on the other side here. I think this is Willie Snead on a quick in-breaker, hit with timing, accuracy over the middle to Willie there. Looks like Willie's been getting a decent amount of work. I wouldn't be surprised if Snead's the practice squad receiver they keep, because they think they can rely on him as a veteran presence and as an understanding of the system. So another tweet here, Miami experimenting with other versions of exit motion out of stacks, sidesteps, and return motions getting work today. That's interesting. The sidestep stuff is something San Francisco's done. You can see it with like McCaffrey. They even do it out of the backfield. And the return motions is just them. I mean, that's in the name. Them returning back to kind of where they were. Like motion out one way, come back the other way, and speed. That kind of mixes things up with exit motion. I think it plays well off of each other. Yeah. Talked about Keon Smith at guard. I want to see Keon Smith at guard in the preseason because he kind of struggled there last year. Looked really good at tackle in the preseason. But if he can give you guard reps, that really helps his chance of making the roster. And I'm a big Keon Smith fan at tackle. So yeah, here's the Tua to Tyreek them. Obviously, hopefully the Dolphins actually post this one so we get like the up close look, but that's a dime. That's a beautiful ball, by the way. Really hits Tyreek in stride there too. No slowing down. Also, I think this is love the footwork in the backfield where the one where he rolls out to the right. This is just does so much. One, I think two, there's not many QBs who do this type of footwork on a consistent level. Tua does it very well. Also, it just messes with like second level defenders, third level defenders, moves them out of the way a lot of the times. That's a very, very good throw, and love seeing those concepts mix up into it. Think the new kickoff rules, yeah, I think it should help the Dolphins personally. I think they have guys who can clearly return and make plays in those areas. But also how they just need to be able to stop it too, that's where it like comes into play. If the Dolphins can tackle and make special teams play, which they brought in special teams help this year, players like Siran Neal, Cam Brown, those are special teams aces. They have some still here from last year too, like Elijah Campbell. It seems like Tanner Connor, Ethan Bonner can make an impact if they are on the team and special teams. So if they can stop kickoffs, I think the Dolphins would be one of the better return teams. And then also, from what I heard today, another little note is the Dolphins have had, on their kick return team, they're having O-linemen out there, which I honestly didn't think about. That's interesting, having athletic O-linemen out there, because now they don't have to run far down the field. They're lined up, within 10 yards of each other. So blocking it up like, it's almost like a regular play. Having O-linemen is very intriguing, especially if they're athletic enough. Like, it's almost just like working out on a screen for an offensive lineman, or climbing to the second level on outside zone, which they all have experience doing within the system. So, and apparently the Falcons didn't have a lineman on their return team. So that's an interesting wrinkle that I'm excited to see how that plays out, because I don't know how many teams are going to do that. Wanted Milton? I did not, Sean. I think apparently Joe Milton's having a good camp, but I think he's just one of the best practice players alive. I went to every Tennessee game, and he's one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen play football, so I'm glad we didn't get him personally. It was tough to watch him play real life football. He is very physically gifted, though. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it, unless you guys have any more questions. It's everything I want to talk about. Got more cap space, unofficial depth chart release. We talked about that. We went over all the things. But yeah, I released a Kader Kohu film breakdown today. If you guys wanted to see that, soon enough we'll get preseason film, and then soon enough we're gonna get preseason film, and then we're gonna have new film to go over and new film breakdowns, and then pretty much every week from there on we'll have that, because preseason week 1 to preseason week 2 to preseason week 3, and then soon after that we get real football, and then we're back in regular season mode. You think Hill could pass Smythe on the depth chart? I don't know if he'll pass him on the depth chart, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the season they were seeing similar level of reps, because last year it even had some in certain games where him and Julian Hill actually got similar level of reps. But I think they just trust Smythe more. I do think Hill is the more physical blocker, but Smythe just has a very, very good understanding of the system and just knows exactly where to be at every point in time. And he also has pretty reliable hands. He's not a super athlete or anything. And I just feel like the Dolphins are going to value that. So I don't think he'll ever pass him on the depth chart, but I wouldn't be surprised if they saw similar levels of reps. How does it affect our... Well, it created cap space this season. Like, the Dolphins now have 36 mil in cap space. I know next year it's... I don't know what the exact cap hit is off the top of my head, but I know The Dolphins are quite over it, so they like the cap hits. They're going to be like 40 something million over, and they're carrying 36. They could carry 36 over. So that's why I think they're going to keep most of this cap space. They're not going to use a lot of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they use some. But they also have a lot of ability to restructure again next year if needed. Like they could restructure a lot of the guys at the top of the roster. Also, I think they can save 20 million if they release someone like Bradley Chubb or something. When is your 53 out? I'll probably have my 53 out at some point during the preseason. I think doing it before, I would do it before the preseason, but like it would vastly change, I'm pretty sure, once the preseason started, because I do feel like preseason changes things. So maybe after like preseason week 2, once we get an actual idea of who's standing out, I might do like a 53 stuff. By every interview, they're dissecting our coach instead of treating him like any ordinary coach. I don't know. I just think people love to dissect anything out of Miami for some reason. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it for today. Do you guys have any more questions to talk about? I'll do another stream tomorrow. It'll be the Dolphins' second day. We'll see how they kind of adjust. It's still practice, so like I don't put too much stock in like the negative stuff. This is where you're trying to learn. I really only put stock in the negative stuff when it comes to players, when it's like guys that are like at the end of the depth chart. Like if they're struggling, then I'm like, okay. Then I'm putting stock into that. I'm like, okay, that's gonna really hurt their chances to make it, And then I put a lot of stock into the positives about the guys that are trying to make it too. But when it comes to like the vets who have been around for a while, I think we'll see them on the field, and that's really where it's going down. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will